Okay, so this build, it is a little bit different than what I normally do. I'm just going to be showing you how I made these frameworks. Specifically, I'm going to show how I did this mortise and through tenon and these half laps up the top as well. It's all made with these dodgy old pallet slats. So again, this is just how I do it. I'm no expert, but I'm pretty happy with how it's turned out. Super strong and worthy of its own video. Hope you like it. Righto, here we go. I've got a heap of this 25mm thick pine, which come off a pallet, obviously. I'm gonna run it through the thicknesser, get it nice and flat, so I get a good gluing bond, which is gonna come into play shortly. I'm gonna run every piece through my straightening jig to get a nice straight edge, and then we can run it through the table saw and get it parallel. Don't forget to turn on your dust extractor with a bit of magic. Just like that. All right, back into it. So yeah, get them all nice and straight, and we've ended up with some nice square, flat, smooth stock. Yes, it's ugly stock, but it's going to be perfect for me because this is all going to be painted white in the end. I've also decided I'm going to make another straightening jig after doing this build. So although this one's quite universal for other jobs I need it for, I really need one of those ones with the quick release toggles so I can get like lots of slats through in a shorter amount of time. I've just laminated two pieces together. Initially, I need to make some tenons for my test pieces. So this is the basic concept. The mortise is going to be my cheater's way. I'm going to cut each side of the mortise on each side of this pallet slat. They're going to be then laminated together. I'm then going to be able to slot the through tenon through to the other side. So here's some dodgy bits of timber, and all my measurements aren't exact yet, but that's the basic concept. So I did a few of those tests. I'm quite happy with it. I'm now going to go ahead, start cutting out half of the mortise on each side of these pallet slats. And I do like to take the piss out of myself that I like to dodge the mallet and the chisel. So pretty much the only chiseling I'm doing is to clean up half of these mortises. Anyway, here's my slow-mo, a quick look at how this thing's actually going to work. And I think it's going to work. So let's keep going. So effectively, I've cut a half lap into each of these pallet slats, but now laminating together, I end up with a mortise that goes through to the other side. So this is a super strong bond using Type Bond 3. I'll just check that everything lines up and clamp it all down and move on to the next step. Okay, while my mortise pieces are in clamps, I'm going to get cracking with the tenons. So again, these are just two pallet slats laminated together. I've basically set the table saw to half the distance, half the width of a pallet slat, and then I'll run around each side at each end, and then I'll take it over to the bandsaw and I can remove the waste. This is very quick and it's very accurate, and every piece is exactly the same. So I'm pretty much in love with the bandsaw already, because normally I would have removed all this waste using the table saw. So lots of backwards and forwards, lots of sawdust. This way you can see how quick and easy it is. Yes, it's another tool, another investment, but for me, a worthy one. Now you might also be asking, why not use a stop block? So short answer is, because the thickness of the cut from the table saw blade, you can sneak up on that edge quite easily. The other bonus is all that scrap just gets pushed out the other side, and I'm keeping my fingers well clear. I'm not trying to remove any of that waste that sits around the blade if you do have a stop block in position. Alrighty, so on the other end of this framework, I'm just going to do half laps. So that's merely setting the blade to 1 pallet width in depth. Run that through on the table saw, and then again, remove the waste with the bandsaw. Super quick and super easy. Okay, so I've got my tenons, I've got my DIY mortises. Now it's just time to glue it all together. So these are quite tight, and I'm going to give it a fair whack with the mallet to get it in there. I'm not sure how tight joinery should be when you do it, but they went in there. It didn't pry open any wood or do any damage. Oh, that's me. I just bought a glue brush, believe it or not. Sumo's Projects. I bought a glue brush. Now you may notice I'm pretty paranoid when it comes to getting things square. Now that comes from years of working with pallet wood. Before I would take the time to square it up with a jig, with a thicknesser and all those things. So I'm now getting better, hopefully. But still, I do like to double check, triple check, make sure everything is nice and square, so that the rest of the build hopefully falls into place nicely. Now this next bit should be in slow motion. Oh yes, have a look at that. Beautiful. I'm a dickhead. Moving on, righto. Pretty much just got to glue the rest together. All the tenons, I'm very happy with how all that worked out. What's coming up next? Wait for it. I don't even know. Making this up as I go. Oh, I'm going to check it square, of course. And again. So the paranoia continues. Now, I bought this U-Butte Bosch miter saw. Now, I actually discovered there is this tiny amount of play in its preset stops. So now, before I go and cut a heap of 90 degrees, I actually check that it is 90 degrees, because in the small workshop, occasionally I might walk past and bump that just off 90 degrees, and that can be devastating when you're going to glue stuff together. All right, what do we work on here? So the half laps is the final part of this framework. So same sort of deal. I do the cross cut with the table saw, and then I do the rip to take away the stock with the bandsaw. Probably the quickest way to cut a half lap. So pretty happy with it. Check out that glue brush. Ho, ho. It's amazing stuff. Love it. All right, bang that on there. Clamp it together, and we're just about done. Oh, hang on. No, I've ballsed up. All right, so what I did here, I didn't take into account the thickness of the blade when I marked this out. So I'm going to recut all this stuff and actually mark it out physically against itself. Take it over the table saw and cut on the correct side of the line. So it'll actually go together, much tighter, much nicer. Like this, just like that, beautiful. Oh, check square and clamp, beautiful. Moving on. So that is pretty much the process that I've done to make these couple of frames. I've got maybe 4 or 5 more of these to go, so it's quite a long bench, and there is going to be a matching bench on the other side of the room. So I'm going to get a fair bit of practice at this. All right, nextly, that's not a word, okay. So where the through tenon pokes out, I'm just going to use the miter saw and trim off that excess waste, and then I'll give the whole thing a bit of a clean up with the belt sander and the orbital sander before we go to work building the rest of the build. And remember, it's going to be all painted white, so you're not going to see any of this joinery, but it's going to look pretty smick and square. Okay, hope you enjoyed it. Hope you get something out of this to show you that yes, it's ugly, dirty old pine, but it cleans up nicely, and it is still good to learn things, build with, and have some fun. Thanks for watching. Take it easy. Hey, check out my new logo, Dana Design. I've retired the pallet punter. Pretty much going to be making the same sort of stuff, but I'm just going to be introducing all sorts of other materials. So stick with me if you like what I do. Take it easy.